Hey everyone, it's Mrs. Puckett here. Today we're going to talk about the diversity of cells, specifically the scientists that discovered cells, the three parts of cell theory, and the two kinds of cells, prokaryotes and eukaryotes. Watch this video and complete the graphic organizer you received in class. Let's get started. First, what is a cell? Well, a cell is the smallest unit that can perform all the processes necessary for life. So, who discovered cells? The first scientist we're going to talk about is Robert Hooke. And in 1665, he was the first person to describe cells. And he was looking at a piece of cork, which is a plant material, through a very primitive light microscope. And he noticed all these little tiny boxes, which he called cells. And in Latin, cells means tiny or little rooms. So the piece of cork he was looking at looked like it had just box after box after box. It wasn't until a couple hundred years later that Matthias Schleiden in 1838 was studying plants. He was a German botanist, and he studied plants, and he theorized that all plants were built from similar cells. He looked at lots and lots of plant tissues and noticed that they all had a very similar structure. And he concluded that all plant parts are made of cells. This will go on to be a part of cell theory. Our second scientist, Theodor Schwann, he was a zoologist, and in 1839, he was studying some animals and developed what would go on to become our second part of cell theory is that all animal tissues were made up of cells that split and divide to create new cells. Then Rudolf Virchow in 1858 read about the work of Schleiden and Schwann, and he discovered that cells could only come from other pre-existing cells. This would go on to become the third part of cell theory. So we've taken all the information from all of these scientists, and cell theory was developed. We have it listed as the ABCs of cell theory to help it make more sense and to help you remember it. So the first part of cell theory is the A. All organisms are made of cells. The B, the cell is the basic unit of all living things. And the C, all cells come from existing cells. The ABCs of cell theory. Flip your graphic organizer to the back to complete the Venn diagram on the two kinds of cells. First, we have prokaryotes. Prokaryotes do not have a nucleus. Their DNA is not housed in the nucleus. Their DNA is just long and circular, sort of looks like a pile of spaghetti. Prokaryotes are the smallest cells, and they do not contain membrane-bound organelles. Prokaryotes use flagellum, or a tail-like structure, to move and get around, and most prokaryotes are unicellular. Unicellular means one cell. Eukaryotes are sort of the opposite of prokaryotes. Eukaryotes have a nucleus. This is where the DNA is stored in a eukaryote. Eukaryotes are the largest cells, and they contain membrane-bound organelles. Most eukaryotes are multicellular, and multicellular means many cells. Some examples of prokaryotic cells include bacteria and archaea. So there's bacteria that live in your mouth, bacteria that live in the soil, bacteria that are in your digestive system, and then we have extremophiles, which like to live in very extreme environments, such as really, really cold places, or maybe at the bottom of the ocean near volcanic vents where it's really hot. Some eukaryotic examples include humans, animals, plants, mushrooms, yeast. So what do these two things have in common? Well, on the left, you'll see a picture of a prokaryotic cell structure, and on the right, you'll see an example of a eukaryotic cell structure, which is an animal cell. Prokaryotic cells and eukaryotic cells both have DNA. The DNA in a prokaryotic cell is just sort of that blue looking spaghetti stuff in the center. And in the eukaryotic cell, it's housed in the nucleus, the purple circular structure to the right of that cell. They both have ribosomes, which are where proteins are produced. The ribosomes are scattered throughout the cytoplasm in both cells, but in a eukaryotic cell, they're also on the rough endoplasmic reticulum. Both types of cells have a cell membrane, which protect the cell and allow things to go in and out of the cell. They both have a cell wall. Animal cells do not, but plant cells, which are another type of eukaryotic cell, do have a cell wall, as well as prokaryotic cells. And then they both have cytoplasm. All right, well, that's it for today. See you guys soon.